What if the innocent curiosity that drives us to explore also leads us to places where reality itself begins to unravel? What if the answers we seek are far more terrible than the questions we ask? You know that feeling, don't you? That itch to peek behind the curtain, to see what's lurking in the shadows, or perhaps what's buried deep beneath our comfortable world. Today, we're not just going to talk about that feeling. We're going to dive headfirst into it, through the unlikely eyes of a small white rabbit. This isn't just a tale of burrowing. It's a descent into the profound, the unsettling, a journey that peels back the surface of reality to reveal something primordial and desperate, something reaching, always reaching, from the deep. Get ready, because the hole this little creature digs isn't just earth and roots. It's a direct tunnel to a place below reality, a dark discovery that promises to linger long after the screen fades. Our story begins, as many do, with a rabbit. Not some mythical beast, but a simple snow-white rabbit, ears twitching, nose perpetually wiggling, driven by the purest instinct, to dig. This particular rabbit, let's call him Pip, lived in a meadow kissed by perpetual twilight, a place where the air always felt a little cooler, the shadows a little longer. Pip wasn't seeking anything grand. He was simply looking for a new cozy burrow, a safe haven from the keen eyes of hawks and the sly paws of foxes. His life was a cycle of nibbling clover, twitching whiskers, and of course, digging. He dug countless burrows in his short life, each one a testament to his industrious, if somewhat mundane, existence. But one crisp evening, as the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, Pip found himself drawn to a patch of earth unlike any other. It hummed with a strange, low vibration, almost imperceptible, but enough to prickle his sensitive whiskers. The soil here was darker, richer, and oddly, it pulsed with a faint, internal luminescence. Driven by an innocent, almost childlike curiosity, Pip began to dig. His strong hind legs kicked up clumps of dark earth, his front paws working with tireless precision. The hole grew deeper, spiraling downwards, far beyond the typical requirements for a rabbit's den. He was driven by more than instinct now. A subtle current, a whisper from the deep, seemed to pull him further. The faint luminescence intensified as he descended, casting strange, shifting shadows that danced around him, making the familiar shape of his own paws seem elongated, distorted. He didn't know it, but he was not just digging into the ground. He was scratching at the very fabric of existence. As the shaft deepened, the air grew heavy, thick with a scent he couldn't place, like ozone, damp stone, and something metallic, almost sickly sweet. The glow, once a faint pulse, now bathed the tunnel in an ethereal greenish light, a light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was then, as his tunnel broke through a thin, brittle layer of what felt like dried chitin, that Pip tumbled. Not a short fall, but a dizzying, head-over-heels descent into a cavern so vast, so utterly alien, that his rabbit brain struggled to process it. This was the place below reality, an expanse where the very rules of dimension seemed to warp and ripple. He landed with a soft thud on a spongy, bioluminescent floor, the fall jarring but not painful. His ears flattened against his head, heart hammering against his tiny ribs. Above him, the glowing hole he had created shimmered, a distant, fading beacon to the world he knew. But it was what lay before him, stretching into the gloom, that truly froze his blood. The light here was not just green, it was a kaleidoscope of sickly purples, faint reds, and deep, phosphorescent blues, all emanating from fissures in the cavern walls. And from these fissures, from the very floor itself, and from shadows that clung to unseen crevices, they emerged. They were hands, thousands of them. Not solid, not quite shadow, but a grotesque fusion of both. They writhed, stretched, and clawed, reaching for the shimmering opening above, the very hole Pip had unwittingly created. These weren't human hands, nor animal paws. They were skeletal, elongated, some with too many joints, others ending in blunt, gnarled stubs. They moved with a slow, agonizing desperation, their silent struggle echoing in the cavern, a symphony of unspoken agony. Pip, a creature of instinct and flight, should have bolted. But he was mesmerized, paralyzed by a fear so profound it transcended his simple understanding. He saw the fragility of his own innocence reflected in those reaching appendages. They were trapped, caught in some unfathomable purgatory, longing for something just out of their grasp. The visual distortion, the way the light played tricks on his eyes, made the hands seem to flicker, to phase in and out of focus, emphasizing the unsettling and otherworldly nature of this realm. He scampered backward, his instincts finally kicking in, bumping into a strange, crystalline growth that pulsed with faint light. He hid behind it, trembling, forcing himself to watch. He had to understand. This wasn't just a place, it was a revelation. He saw them not as individual limbs, but as a collective entity, a struggling mass of something yearning for release. Our channel, explores horror through symbolic animal journeys, and Pip's journey here is rich with meaning. This rabbit, a symbol of innocence, fertility, and unassuming life, digging deeper than he ever should have, represents our own human curiosity. We often poke and prod at the edges of what we understand. driven by a primal need to know, to uncover. But what if, like Pip, that curiosity leads us not to enlightenment, but to a deeper, more profound darkness? We can put ourselves in Pip's tiny shoes, feeling the sheer terror of confronting something utterly beyond our comprehension. This isn't just about a rabbit or shadowy hands. This is about the thin veneer of reality we live within. What if, just below the surface of our everyday lives, there are layers of existence, realms of pure, raw consciousness, trapped and struggling? What if the very foundations of our world are built upon the suffering of something ancient and forgotten? Pip, in his innocent act of digging, had stumbled upon a crack in that veneer, glimpsing the unspeakable forces that govern reality, forces we usually remain blissfully unaware of. The cavern itself seemed to breathe, a slow, deep exhalation that stirred the clinging shadows. Pip watched, his small heart feeling like a trapped bird. Some of the hands had grown longer, reaching closer to the flickering opening he'd created, their movements more frantic, more desperate. He could almost hear the silent screams, the endless pleas. This was psychological dread at its finest, a creature feature horror where the creature is an unknowable, fragmented mass of despair. He realized, with a clarity that shocked him, that these weren't just hands, they were remnants. Fragments of something vast, something broken, yearning to be whole again, or perhaps simply to escape. Like prisoners in a cosmic dungeon, their existence was defined by their struggle against an invisible barrier. And Pip, the unwitting jailbreak enabler, was standing at the threshold. This wasn't a survival story in the typical sense. Pip wasn't fighting a monster with teeth and claws. He was fighting the suffocating weight of existential dread, the chilling revelation of a world far more complex and terrifying than he could ever have imagined. He was confronting his fear not through battle, but through observation, through the sheer overwhelming force of the truth. The air grew colder, even as the strange light pulsed with increased intensity, a chill that wasn't just physical but soul-deep. Pip saw one particularly gnarled, almost translucent hand, longer than the rest, stretched with an almost intelligent precision. It twisted, flexing its phantom fingers barely brushing the edges of the glowing hole above. For a horrifying moment, Pip imagined it breaking through, dragging itself upward, perhaps followed by countless others bursting into the unsuspecting meadow above. What then? Would reality tear apart? Would the sky itself weep? He had to do something. But what could a single rabbit do against an eternity of suffering, a legion of desperate shadows? His stoic lessons, usually applied to enduring a harsh winter or outsmarting a predator, felt utterly inadequate here. This was a challenge on a cosmic scale. But Pip, despite his terror, found a flicker of that innate curiosity return, twisted now by dread. He moved closer, cautiously, not to help the hands, but to observe, to understand. He peered into the swirling vortex of appendages, trying to discern a pattern, a source, anything that could explain this horrific tableau. He saw, or thought he saw, tiny glittering motes of light within the substance of the hands themselves, like trapped stars. Were these memories, whispers of a former self? The thought only deepened the unsettling nature of the scene. These were not mindless beasts. They were something that had once been, something that remembered and suffered because of it. Existing just beneath the surface of our perception is what truly makes this underground horror story unsettling. This journey, Pip's journey, is a poignant example of symbolic curiosity gone awry. It's a dark discovery, an animal story that taps into our deepest fears, about the unknown, about what lies beyond our senses, unseen, yet eternally present. Pip, caught between his innocent drive to create a home and the terrifying discovery of a fundamental fissure in reality, represents our own fragile existence. We build our lives, our routines, our sense of order without ever truly knowing what stirs beneath our feet. And sometimes, like Pip, we accidentally dig too deep. What lessons can we take from Pip? Perhaps a lesson in humility, in the terrifying scope of the universe, and in the sheer overwhelming power of things we can barely glimpse. There's a certain stoicism in facing the unbearable truth and witnessing horrors beyond words and somehow still existing. Pip hadn't saved the world, or even stopped the hands, but he had seen. He had understood, and in that understanding, there was a terrible insight. He carried the knowledge of this place, this abyss, back with him. Whether he escaped or was forever marked by this encounter, we cannot fully know. But his world, the meadow, the clover, the sun, would never be the same. The shadow of the hands would forever stretch in his mind, a constant chilling reminder of the truth buried deep below. The ultimate outcome for Pip is left to linger. Did he manage to clamber back through the shimmering hole, forever haunted by the memory? A changed creature? Or did the hands at their most desperate finally snag him, pulling him down into the endless, writhing expanse, adding his small, innocent struggle to their own? This ambiguity, this open-ended terror, is central to the kind of unsettling discoveries and insights our channel aims to provide. It's the horror of not knowing, of what could have happened, that stays with you. This tale of the rabbit and the abyss is a stark reminder that sometimes the most profound horrors aren't found in roaring monsters or slasher villains, but in the subtle shifts of reality, in the desperate reaching of forgotten things, and in the terrifying implications of our own unbounded curiosity. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What else is beneath your feet, humming, struggling, just waiting for someone to dig deep enough? If this journey into the unsettling depths left you pondering the thin veil of reality, then click on the video popping up now for more unsettling discoveries.